Respected listener, I wrote this story for your entertainment. Please like and subscribe if you find this story interesting. Thank you. The rain had not stopped for 3 days. In the sterile glow of the operating suite, Dr. Elise Vance watched the droplets crawl down the glass like veins under translucent skin. Each sound in the room, every hum of a monitor, every click of metal on metal, was a note in her private symphony of control. Here, surrounded by machines and silence, she was untouchable. Outside these walls, her world was much less precise. Debt, gossip, whispers of a malpractice suit she thought had vanished years ago. But tonight, none of that mattered. A child's heart was beating again beneath her hands, and that was all she needed to feel clean. When the surgery ended, Elise peeled off her gloves, leaving faint pink crescents in her palms. She told the nurse she would lock up. She didn't mind the solitude. It was the only thing that ever stayed. She changed into street clothes, black slacks, a raincoat, and stepped into the corridor. The hospital lights buzzed above her like dying fireflies. A shape waited near the exit. Half hidden in shadow, Dr. Vance. The voice was deep, polite, and wrong in some unspoken way. She hesitated. Yes. The man smiled without warmth. A dark umbrella rested in his hand, closed. His suit was immaculate, but his shoes were wet. We've been looking for you. Something cold slid behind her ribs. If this is about the malpractice review, I already. It's not about that, he said softly. Someone needs your help. Right now. He opened the umbrella, not against rain, but as if to shield their conversation from the hallway. Under its canopy, his eyes were flat, businesslike. Our employer is a sick man, he continued. He requires an immediate procedure. Discretion is vital. I'm not a concierge surgeon, Elise said. If he needs a consult, schedule. The man handed her a tablet. On the screen was a video. Grainy security footage. A younger Elise in a hospital stairwell, shouting at a man in a lab coat. The timestamp dated years ago. The night her father died, during what had been ruled a failed operation. Then the angle shifted, and another clip appeared. A conference room, a folder exchanged, an envelope of cash. The man accepting it was her mentor, the one who had testified to protect her license. She froze. Where did you get this? The stranger's smile widened. You saved your career once. Our employer saved it for you. Now he's calling in the debt. Her throat tightened. Ooh. He leaned closer, breath warm with cologne and rain. Don Raffaele Moretti. The name struck like a scalpel dropped on stone. The Moretti family ran half the city's underworld, and the other half feared them. Elise whispered. Soon. Unless you help him. He slipped a phone into her pocket. Instructions will follow. Don't ignore them. When she looked up again, the man was gone. Only the umbrella remained, lying open on the wet tile like a dark flower. That night, Elise tried to drown her fear in routine. She sterilized instruments that didn't need sterilizing, checked patient charts twice. But when the phone buzzed at 3 a.m., she answered before the first ring had finished. A voice, female-controlled, spoke through static. Dr. Vance. The Doan's condition is critical. You will receive coordinates. Bring your kit. Alone. The line went dead. Elise stared at the phone. Every rational instinct told her to destroy it. Call the police, disappear. But reason has no power when guilt is the leash. She packed her surgical bag, each tool sliding into place with the weight of decision. Scalpel. Retractor. Clamps. Morphine. Then she drove. The address led her through industrial fog to the edge of the river. An abandoned glass factory turned into a fortress. 2 black cars waited at the gate. When she stepped out, men in dark coats searched her wordlessly. The air smelled of oil and rain. Inside, the building had been remade into something surreal, a room of chandeliers and medical monitors. In the center lay a man connected to machines, his chest rising shallowly beneath silk sheets. Don Raffaele Moretti. The devil with a dying heart. He would devil within his reputation. Silver hair slicked back. Skin the color of ivory smoke. Even unconscious, his presence filled the room like the hum of voltage. A woman stood at his bedside, sharp-eyed and sleepless. I'm Lucia Moretti, she said. His niece. You'll operate here. Everything you need is provided. Elise looked around. Equipment that should not exist outside a licensed hospital. The setup was flawless. Illegal, but flawless. I'm not a miracle worker, Elise said. If he's in multi-organ failure, I can't. Lucia cut her off. He's stable enough to wait. The heart is coming. The heart. Lucia's gaze didn't waver. Don't ask questions you can't survive. Elise's mouth went dry. You want a transplant. We want our Don alive. You'll make that happen. Elise stared at the monitors, trying to find logic in madness. A transplant requires matching immunosuppressants. Sterile conditions. You'll have all of that, Lucia said. And more money than you've ever seen. But if you refuse, she gestured to the guards by the door, your past will return in full color. Hours blurred into metallic dawn. Elise stood alone by Raffaele's bedside, watching the slow waveform of his pulse. It was steady. Too steady. She whispered to herself. You shouldn't be alive. His eyelids flickered. For a moment she thought he'd woken, but the voice that came was hoarse, dreamlike. You're the doctor. She froze. Rest, don't speak. He smiled weakly. You have surgeon's eyes, cold, but curious. You shouldn't be talking. Neither should you. He murmured. Not here. He drifted back into silence, leaving her shaken. Something about him was magnetic even in near death. A gravity of will that pressed against her resolve. She turned away, forcing herself to think clinically. This was just another patient. Just another impossible task. But as she checked his chart, she noticed a detail that made her heart stop. The donor file, the one she was not supposed to see, was already prepared. Age, blood type, cross, match numbers. The name field was blank. They had a heart. Ready before a donor existed. By morning the city outside had turned to glass and thunder. Elise stood at a window, sleepless, replaying the night's events. Her reflection looked foreign. Hair loose. Eyes darker than usual. Lips trembling from adrenaline and dread. She whispered to her reflection. You can't do this. But she already knew she would. The trap had been set years ago, the moment she chose silence over truth about her father's death. Behind her, the machines beeped. A soft, steady rhythm like the ticking of a clock running out. The dawn stirred again. This time his eyes opened fully, gray as winter fog. You came? He said. Elise turned. I didn't have a choice. There's always a choice, daughteressa. You simply prefer the ones that hurt. She should have left the room. Instead, she found herself answering. Why me? Because I like the way you cut, he said. A faint smile. Precise. His words felt like a diagnosis she didn't want. He extended a trembling hand, palm up, as if asking for a promise. Save me. He whispered. And I'll save you. Looked down at that hand, pale, powerful, dying. For the briefest second, she felt the pulse beneath his skin. Thin, fading, but still fighting. Thunder rolled. The lights flickered. Outside, a car screeched to a halt. Voices shouted. Lucia burst in, breathless. The donor has been secured. Prep the operating suit. Elise asked. Lucia met her eyes. You don't need to know. Elise wanted to protest, but the guards were already moving, pushing gurneys, laying out instruments. The rain beat harder against the windows. A frantic percussion. She forced her shaking hands into surgical gloves. Inside her chest, her heart raced in double time with the monitor's rhythm. Somewhere outside, another heart had stopped so this one could begin. She didn't yet know whose it was. The city was still sleeping when Elise left the warehouse. A pale dawn seeped through the clouds, washing the streets in bruised gray. In the back of the ambulance, machines whispered to each other in electronic code. Oxygen, pulse, blood pressure. An orchestra of fragile numbers. On the stretcher lay Don Raffaele Moretti, motionless except for the shallow rise beneath the blankets. His life was now measured in digital flickers. Elise drove herself. No chauffeur, no police escort. Just her, the man who owned half the city, and the weight of what she had agreed to do. The tires hissed through puddles, as she turned toward the forgotten industrial quarter. Ahead, hidden between derelict factories, a low building waited behind iron gates. The Vance Research Annex, officially closed 5 years ago. Few knew that beneath it lay a labyrinth of sterile rooms and sealed chambers. Elise had built it with settlement money from the malpractice case she swore never to mention again. It was supposed to be a sanctuary for experimental procedures. Then guilt turned it into a tomb for her ambition. Now, she was opening it for a mafia don. The gates creaked as they swung inward. 2 guards followed her van into the courtyard, headlights slicing through drizzle. Inside, the air smelled of disinfectant and cold metal. Lights flickered awake in sequence, revealing corridors lined with glass doors. Elise moved quickly, issuing orders that barely concealed the tremor in her voice. Bay 1. Sterile prep. Bay 2. Ventilator setup. He'll need dopamine infusion within the hour. Her assistants had been chosen for loyalty, not curiosity. They didn't ask why the patient arrived under guard, why she sealed the external communication lines, why the monitors were coded under a false ID. To them, this was just another of Dr. Vance's private miracles. They lifted Raffaele onto the surgical bed. His skin had gone ashen, sweat curled at his temples. When she attached the EKG leads, his heartbeat appeared as a fragile green pulse across the screen. 71. Then 68. Then 62. Hold pressure at 90, she murmured. If he drops below that, start norepinephrine. Elise Moretti watched from the corner. Impeccable suit, unreadable eyes. You'll keep him alive until the donor arrives, she said. That's all you need to do. Elise didn't answer. She was already calculating dosages, mechanical flows, contingencies. Yet beneath the clinical rhythm, unease spread through her like a slow toxin. She had saved hundreds of lives. None of them had come wrapped in this kind of silence. Hours crawled by. The clinic hummed like a ship under the sea, sealed from the world. Elise kept vigil at the bedside, adjusting drips, charting vital signs. Occasionally Raffaele stirred, muttering fragments in Italian, snatches of prayer or memory, she couldn't tell. Once, his hand brushed hers, fingers cold and dry. You built this place, he whispered without opening his eyes. She startled. You need rest. He smiled faintly. No one builds a sanctuary for others. Only for themselves. His words echoed long after he drifted back into sedation. By nightfall, rain drummed on the roof like impatient fingers. The backup generators groaned. Fluorescent lights cast the rooms in one color. Elise sat at her desk, reviewing his labs. The numbers were worsening: renal strain, low oxygen saturation. If the donor heart didn't arrive soon, he'd slip past the point of rescue. She stared at the phone Lucia had given her. No messages. No updates. Just a single line on the screen. Await delivery. Her mind drifted back to the night her father died. The same helpless waiting, the same sterile smell. The world had watched him bleed on the table, while she stood frozen at the monitor. That failure had defined her. Now another dying tied her to a different kind of crime. She rose, restless, and walked the corridor. The clinic was silent except for the low hum of machines and the heartbeat monitor, a metronome of borrowed time. Through the observation glass, she studied Raffaele's sleeping face. Age had carved lines of command into it, but exhaustion softened there without his empire. He looked almost human. Almost. She turned away before the thought could settle. Near midnight, one of her assistants approached, eyes wide, voice hushed. Doctor? His blood pressure's falling again. Elise hurried back, pulse quickening to match the alarms. Numbers flashed red. Noradrenaline, 5 micromoles per kilo, she ordered. Now. The drug hit the line. The pressure climbed, but too slowly. His heart was failing faster than she'd predicted. Lucia appeared at the doorway. Can you keep him alive? Not like this. Elise snapped. Needs more support. Then, do whatever it takes. Elise's gaze flicked to the portable bypass unit locked to the cabinet. A prototype she'd never dared use. It could keep circulation moving for hours, maybe days, but it was untested on a case this fragile. She hesitated. The line on the monitor stuttered. Decision made itself. Prepare the pump, she said. Within minutes, the small team assembled. The air grew heavy with antiseptic and fear. Elise worked by instinct. Incision, cannulation, connection. Her mind a perfect mechanical rhythm. Blood flowed through tubes of clear plastic, shimmering like rubies in motion. The pump engaged with a soft mechanical sigh. Raphael's color improved, the monitor steadied. A small victory, won in stolen light. When it was over, Elise removed her gloves and leaned against the wall. Her arms trembled. Lucia exhaled for the first time in hours. You bought him time, she said. Elise nodded. That's all I can buy anyone. For a moment, silence. Then Lucia handed her a sealed envelope. From our courier. It arrived while you were in surgery. The donor is confirmed. Transport tomorrow. Elise wiped sweat from her brow. Tore the envelope open. Expecting charts, blood types, logistics. Instead, a single photograph slipped into her hand. It showed a young man smiling against a seaside sunset. Wind tousled his hair, eyes bright with reckless hope. She knew that face. She had once traced its outline with her fingertips. Her knees weakened. The room seemed to tilt. Lucia's voice came from far away. Is there a problem, doctor? Elise forced the words out. Who is the donor? Lucia shrugged lightly. A man who no longer needs his heart. That's all that matters. Elise stared again at the photograph. It was Daniel Hale, her former fiancé. The one who vanished months before. The one who had been investigating the Moretti family. She felt the pulse in her throat hammering against her stethoscope. Where did you get this? She whispered. Lucia's expression didn't change. Focus on your patient, Dr. Vance. Everything else is noise. Then she turned and walked out, heels clicking against tile. Elise stood frozen. The photo trembling in her gloved hand. In the background, the monitor kept its steady rhythm. Her patient's borrowed heartbeat filling the silence. She pressed the picture to her chest, unable to tell if the pounding beneath it was guilt, fear, or something darker. Outside, thunder rolled across the city like a verdict yet to be delivered. Dawn arrived pale and exhausted, like the world had forgotten how to breathe. In the courtyard above the underground clinic, the rain had finally stopped. Water pooled in broken tiles, catching the first light of morning. A surface calm hiding currents beneath. Elise stood at the service door, gloved hands tight around a clipboard. A convoy of vans rolled through the gates. Men stepped out wordlessly, faces blank, coats slick with mist. One of them opened the rear doors. Inside was a steel container marked only with a red cross and a number. Elise's throat closed. She knew what was inside. The heart. Daniel's heart. They wheeled it past her toward the sterile chamber. She followed, every footstep hollow. The corridor lights seemed too bright. The smell of antiseptic clawed at her lungs. When the men left, Lucia appeared, signing forms in neat strokes. The organ is viable, Lucia said. You begin. Elise nodded. She could not trust her voice. She turned away and pressed a code into the security pad. The doors sealed behind her with a hiss. Inside the scrub room, she stood before the mirror. For a long time she didn't move. The woman staring back looked older, almost translucent. Sleepless nights had drawn blue shadows beneath her eyes. She forced herself to speak, a whisper just loud enough to hear. Focus on the patient. Nothing else exists. The words steadied her hands. She scrubbed, pulled on sterile gloves, stepped through the final door. The operating theater glowed under surgical lamps. Machines stood ready, their soft hum like the breathing of something unseen. On the table, Raffaele Moretti waited beneath white sheets. His pulse was a faint thread on the monitor. Elise's team assembled quietly. None of them knew who the donor was, none dared to ask. She checked every valve, every syringe, every clamp, until the world shrank to rhythm and protocol. When she opened the container, vapor rose in a slow, sacred curl. The organ rusted inside, fragile, perfect, still. The sight of it hit her harder than she expected. It was not gore she saw, but memory, the scent of ocean air, Daniel laughing against the wind. His voice promising a future she never kept. Her chest ached. She closed the lid for a moment, swallowed the trembling in her throat, then opened it again. Commence procedure, she said. Time fragmented. Orders, answers, numbers, everything became motion. Her hands moved with unearthly calm, guided by the muscle memory of 1,000 rehearsals. Steel silk, blood machine. She no longer felt fear, only the weight of precision. Minutes stretched into eternity. Somewhere in that silence, she forgot the world above ground. Forgot morality, forgot herself. When she placed the donor heart in its new home, she felt its weight as if she were holding a secret too heavy to bear. Restart circulation, she whispered. The pump engaged, a dull flutter. Then another. The monitor stuttered, faltered, then found rhythm. A beat, then two. Raffaele's chest lifted in shallow defiance of death. Around her, the team exhaled. Elise didn't. She kept watching the monitor as if waiting for it to accuse her. Finally, she stepped back. Close the incision, she ordered, voice thin. She removed her gloves and left the theater before anyone could see her hands shaking. The recovery ward was dim, lit only by monitors. The air was heavy with sterilized warmth and the faint electronic scent of ozone. Elise sat beside the bed, watching Raffaele's pulse dance across the screen. Each spike felt like a question she couldn't answer. She told herself she had done what any doctor would do. Save a life, no matter whose. But the other half of her mind whispered the truth. This was not medicine. It was penance. Lucia entered hours later, her posture straight, her perfume sharp enough to sting. You did it, she said. He's stable. Elise nodded without looking up. Lucia studied her face. You should rest, I can't. Elise murmured. Not yet. Lucia's heels clicked away, leaving the steady tone of the monitor behind. Alone again, Elise reached for the chart. She traced the printed waveform of the new heart, reading it like scripture. Every curve was familiar, intimate. She had listened to that rhythm before. Late nights in bed, her head on Daniel's chest, counting beats until sleep. Now it pulsed beneath another man's ribs. She pressed her hand lightly against her own heart, matching pace to his. For one disorienting moment they aligned. Night deepened. The clinic grew quiet except for the rain returning above ground, a faint whisper through the vents. Elise drifted in and out of uneasy sleep at the bedside. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Daniel's face behind her lids, lips moving without sound. When she woke near midnight, Raffaele was awake. He lay propped against the pillows, pale but alert, eyes reflecting the low light. Wires trailed from his chest, but his voice was steady. So, he said softly, you did it. Elise rose too quickly. You shouldn't speak. Don't steal this moment from me, daughteressa. I've come back from somewhere cold. He looked down at his bandaged chest, then at her. It beats. You feel it? She hesitated, then touched his wrist to check the pulse. Strong. Surreal. Yes, she said. It beats. He watched her fingers linger a second too long. There's something strange, he murmured. Every time it beats I see things. Faces I don't know. Her breath caught. Screams. It's the anesthesia. Maybe. His eyes searched hers. One face repeats. A man on a beach. He calls your name. Her heart stopped for a second. What did he say? Raffaele frowned, struggling to recall. He said, tell her I'm still here. Elise felt the room tilt. She gripped the rail of the bed to steady herself. You're confused, she whispered. Rest. Please. He smiled faintly. It frightens you. It doesn't. Then why are you trembling? She turned away, pretending to adjust the monitor. Because you shouldn't be alive. He laughed quietly, the sound fragile and haunting. And yet I am. Thanks to you. His voice softened. We share something now, don't we? My life. Your secret? The Elise couldn't answer. The words lodged in her throat like a confession half-spoken. When she finally looked back, he had closed his eyes, already drifting back towards sleep. The monitor ticked on, that impossible rhythm filling the room. She stepped into the corridor. The overhead lights buzzed. She leaned against the wall, pressing her palms to her face. Her reflection in the glass looked pale, ghost-like. She whispered, Daniel, what did they do to you? The only reply was the faint pulse echoing through the intercom. Raphael's new heartbeat reverberating in every room like an omen. By morning, reports showed improvement. The transplant was a success. Lucia congratulated her with a thin smile and left to call her uncle's advisors. Guards relaxed. The staff began to believe the crisis had passed. But Elise felt none of their relief. She watched Raphael from the observation window as he slept, and the sense of something unnatural grew stronger. Every few minutes, his body shivered, his fingers twitched as if remembering a different gesture. Once, he murmured a phrase in a voice that wasn't his. "Elise, the tide's coming in." Her breath hitched. Daniel had said that the day before he disappeared. She backed away from the glass. For a moment she considered deleting the donor file, burning every record. But what would that change? The truth was already beating beneath his ribs. That night she recorded a note in her private log, voice barely audible over the hum of the machines. Patient Raffaele M. Post-transplant day 1. Vital strong. Subject exhibits episodes of somniloquy referencing donor's personal details. Possible neural recall through autonomic feedback. Impossible, but it happens. Or maybe it's me. Projecting. She stopped the recorder, unable to continue. The silence that followed was absolute, until a soft mechanical beep cut through it. Faster, stronger, urgent. She rushed to the bedside. Raphael's eyes were open again, pupils wide, breath shallow. He gripped her wrist with startling strength. "Don't run from him," he whispered. "He's inside every beat." Elise froze. The monitors showed perfect rhythm. Nothing abnormal, nothing that justified the terror crawling up her spine. He released her hand, exhaled, and drifted back into calm sleep. Elise stood there for a long time, watching the steady line pulse across the screen, green against black. Every light in the room seemed to sync to that rhythm. When she finally spoke, it was only to herself. This heart shouldn't beat. She switched off the lamp. The darkness folded around them, alive with the sound of one impossible heartbeat, echoing through concrete and steel. 3 weeks passed. The storm that had hidden the transplant was gone, replaced by uneasy spring sunlight leaking through the clinic's high windows. Outside, the world had moved on. Inside, time crawled. Raffaele Moretti was recovering faster than medicine allowed. His chart showed textbook perfection. Oxygen high, scars fading, reflexes sharp. The staff whispered miracle when they thought Elise couldn't hear. She called it something else. A mistake that refused to die. He now spent hours sitting upright, reading newspapers as if preparing to re-enter his empire. When he spoke, his voice carried a new steadiness, smoother, quieter, and unsettlingly familiar. Elise watched him from the observation room, arms folded against the glass. Every movement reminded her of someone else, a turn of his head, a half-smile. The way he sometimes paused before speaking, as though listening for an echo only he could hear. Lucia noticed too. "He's different," she said one morning, handing Elise the daily vitals. "Gentler, maybe. Or colder. I can't decide." Elise didn't answer. She studied the signature at the bottom of the page. Hers. And felt a small tremor behind her ribs. Later that day, she entered his room alone. Raphael sat near the window. Sunlight breaking across the monitors. He looked stronger, the pallor gone from his skin. On the tray beside him lay an open book of poetry. "You're up early," she said. "I couldn't sleep." He looked up with a faint smile. "Too many dreams chasing me." She checked the monitors. Nightmares are common after major surgery. These weren't nightmares. He closed the book, eyes distant. "Not mine." Elise froze. "You should rest." He tilted his head, studying her. "I keep seeing the ocean, and a woman standing at the edge." "You." Her breath caught. "The drugs can cause hallucinations." "Maybe," he said, voice low. "But when I wake, I can still feel the salt on my lips." She turned away to hide the tremor in her hands. "I'll adjust your medication." When she left the room, she walked straight to her office, closed the door, and stared at the cabinet that held Daniel Hale's file. It was gone. The space where it belonged was empty. That night, the clinic hummed with sleepless energy. Power flickered once, twice. Elise sat before her computer, searching backup archives. Every trace of Daniel Hale, his donor ID, medical data, transport log, had vanished. Only the date remained, mocking her in gray text file not found. She leaned back, pressing her palms to her eyes. Someone had erased him. A knock broke the silence. Lucia entered without waiting. "You're still here." Elise gestured to the blank screen. "Ooh, authorized file deletion." Lucia's expression didn't change. "Those records were never meant to exist. You did your job. Let it end there." "You don't understand." Lucia stepped closer. "I understand more than you think. My uncle remembers things he shouldn't. He asks questions about you, about a man named Daniel. Keep him calm, Elise. If he connects the wrong dots, we both disappear." Thus she left before Elise could speak. For days, Elise avoided Raffaele's eyes. She performed her rounds like a ghost, efficient, distant. But the pull between them grew heavier. Each time she entered the room, his heartbeat seemed to sync with hers. The monitors picked up subtle shifts. Nothing the nurses noticed, but she heard it, the faint double rhythm, two hearts echoing through one machine. Late one evening, as rain tapped the roof again, Elise checked on him. He was sitting in the dark, no lights, no music, just the steady pulse of monitors. "You should sleep," she said softly. He smiled. "You keep saying that. Maybe you're the one who can't." She hesitated. "What makes you think that?" "Because every time I close my eyes, I feel you watching. Even when you're not here." The words should have sounded like threat or delusion. Instead, they felt like truth. He gestured to the chair beside him. "Sit, please." Against her better judgment, she did. The air smelled faintly of antiseptic and rain. For a long time, neither spoke. Then Raffaele said, "You saved my life. And yet you look at me like I'm a crime you regret." Elise swallowed. "You shouldn't remember Daniel." He turned to her slowly. "So that's his name." Her blood ran cold. "Who told you?" "No one." He touched his chest lightly. He did. The monitor's pulse quickened, a mechanical heartbeat speeding with his words. Elise stared, unable to look away. "He loved you," Raffaele whispered. "I can feel it. It's in the rhythm itself. Every beat carries its stop," she said. "That's not possible." "Then why are you crying?" She hadn't realized she was. A tear slid down her cheek before she could stop it. Raffaele leaned closer. "Maybe love doesn't die with the body. Maybe it just finds a new place to live." Elise stood abruptly. "You need rest. This conversation ends now." But as she turned for the door, he said something that rooted her where she stood. "Elise, the tide's coming in." The same words Daniel had spoken the night before he disappeared. Elise froze at the doorway. Rain battered the roof in slow, deliberate rhythm, as though the world itself repeated the sentence back to her. She turned slowly. Raffaele was still watching her, calm, almost tender. He didn't know what he'd said. Or maybe he did. "The tide's coming in," she whispered, barely a breath. Her mind filled with the last evening she'd shared with Daniel. The rocky coast outside Marseille. Wind clawing at their coats, his laughter scattered among the waves. Hours later his car had vanished from a cliff road, swallowed by that same sea. She forced herself to meet Raffaele's gaze. "Where did you hear that?" "I told you," he said. "I didn't hear it, I remembered it." He looked at his own hands, flexing them as if they belonged to someone else. "Sometimes I wake up and they move before I tell them to. Sometimes I speak and the words aren't mine. You must have noticed." Elise's heartbeat thundered in her ears. "You need rest. You're disoriented." He smiled faintly. "You keep calling it confusion. I call it resurrection." She wanted to run, but instead she stepped closer. A scientist's instinct, a lover's denial. "Tell me exactly what you feel," she said. He looked up, like someone else is standing behind my eyes. "Watching you." A pause. "Loving you." Her pulse stuttered. For a moment she felt Daniel in the room, not as memory but as presence. Invisible, certain, impossibly close. Then the monitor beside the bed began to beep irregularly. Two pulses overlapping, one mechanical, one human. She tore her gaze away. Lie down. I'm increasing your beta blocker. But the machine continued its double rhythm until she touched the cable and disconnected it, cutting the sound short. The silence that followed felt heavier than any noise. Later that night she sat in her office, drenched in blue monitor light. The clinic slept. Her notes blurred together, clinical entries dissolving into questions she couldn't bring herself to ask aloud. Was memory biological? Could the heart itself carry fragments of the mind? And if it could, who was she keeping alive down there? The Mafia Don, or the ghost of Daniel Hale? A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Lucia stepped in, coat already on. You look worse every day, she said quietly. Did you know about the donor identity? Elise asked. Lucia hesitated. I knew only that it was someone you once cared for. Why me? Why Hisia Exhart? Because my uncle trusts no one else to save him. And because you would never refuse to save him. Elise stared at her, realization dawning. You arranged it. Lucia didn't deny it. He needed a compatible donor. You were the only one who could make it possible. And maybe, she added softly, I wanted to see what you'd do when faced with your past. You played God. Lucia gave a small, bitter laugh. No, doctor. You did. She turned and left. Heels echoing down the corridor, until they were swallowed by the hum of machines. When Elise finally returned to Raphael's room, dawn was thinning the rain into mist. He was standing by the window, unplugged from every monitor, staring out at the gray horizon. You shouldn't be on your feet, she said. He turned, smiling. You sound just like him. Her stomach tightened. Like who? Daniel. He stepped closer, voice soft. I remember how he used to say your name. How he... Stop. He stopped, not in obedience but in understanding. You think I'm losing my mind. I think trauma rewires the brain. You're merging memories, filling blanks. Then explain this. He reached for her hand, pressed it flat against his chest. Close your eyes, her will, she did. Under her palm. The heart thudded steady and strong. Then changed rhythm, subtle but unmistakable. Daniel's old arrhythmia. The tiny skip she'd memorized during nights that felt infinite. Her breath caught. That's impossible. Impossible. He repeated, opening his eyes. Is just the name we give what we fear to believe. Elise pulled away. You're not him? No. Raphael said gently. But he's not gone either. Hours later, she stood alone in the operating theater. The same table where she had joined the two men in one act of forbidden mercy. Her gloves hung from a hook, crimson stains long washed away. The smell of disinfectant filled her lungs like a sacrament. She whispered into the empty room, What have I done? From the intercom came a faint burst of static. Then a voice. Warm and low, threaded through the distortion. Elise. She froze. The system was off. No one should be speaking. The static deepened. You can't keep living in both worlds. Her eyes darted toward the speaker. Daniel. But the sound faded, leaving only the low hum of electricity and her own racing pulse. That evening, she found Raphael in the corridor outside the lab. He was dressed, steady on his feet, reading her chart notes with calm defiance. You shouldn't have those, she said. I have to understand what I am. He handed the papers back. You wrote that the donor was someone tied to your past. Why hide it? Because truth can kill faster than disease. He studied her face, searching for cracks. Do you believe in souls, Elise? She hesitated. I believe in consequences. He smiled sadly. Then maybe they're the same thing. A long silence stretched between them. Finally he said, You think saving me was a sin? I know it was. Then let me be your penance. The words struck like a pulse through her veins. She turned away, whispering, Don't tempt me. But he stepped closer until his voice brushed her ear. I don't have to. You're already tempted. That night she returned to her quarters, locked the door, and collapsed onto the narrow bed. She couldn't tell whether she was afraid of him or of herself. Sleep came fitfully, haunted by the sound of two heartbeats converging into one. She She dreamed she was underwater, waves closing over her head. A figure reached out, Daniel, or Raffaele, or both, and whispered, "Come back to me." When she woke, her hands were wet with sweat, her chest aching in perfect time, with the morning through the clinic walls. By morning, Raffaele was gone. His bed lay empty, sheets folded with military precision. The guards swore they hadn't seen him leave. The security footage showed nothing but static between midnight and dawn. Elise searched every corridor, every room, until she reached the service tunnel that led to the outside world. The door stood open, rain blowing in. On the floor lay a single page torn from her own notes. On it, written in neat script, were 3 words. "The tide's coming." She stared at the words until the paper blurred. Then she looked up at the gray horizon beyond the tunnel, where the sound of the sea rose like breath. Somewhere out there, Raffaele, whatever he had become, was alive, and inside her, beneath the terror, something darker stirred the faint, forbidden hope that she might see him again. Rain had not stopped for 7 days. It blurred the city into something dreamlike, as if reality itself wanted to wash away. Elise sat in her office, the clinic empty, her reflection ghosting across the glass. She hadn't slept since Raffaele disappeared. Each night, she dreamed of waves breaking on steel, of 2 voices whispering in unison. Lucia had told her to wait, that her uncle would make contact when it was safe. But Elise knew silence from the Morettis meant only one thing: they were burying secrets. She pressed her hand to her chest. Her pulse stuttered. For one impossible second, she felt a second rhythm answer from far away. Faint but alive, she whispered, "Where are you?" The rain outside answered with the sound of a tide returning. That was when she decided she couldn't stay hidden any longer. The Morettis had erased Daniel's records after his accident. But Elise was a surgeon. She understood that no deletion is perfect. Every scar leaves a trace. She hacked into the donor database, bypassing encryption protocols she herself had helped design. A name appeared, blurred with digital static D-Hale. Subject. Her hands trembled. The file contained a single line of metadata, STORG. Genoa Portsis TOR7, a cold dread crawled up her spine. Genoa, Daniel's hometown. The last place he'd worked before his car plunged into the sea. She whispered the word like a confession. Geno. The next night, she left the clinic under a new name, Elena Durand. No luggage. Only a passport, cash, and a locket containing a photo of Daniel she couldn't bear to look at. Lucia intercepted her at the gate. "You're not built for running," she said softly. "You're built for saving what can't be saved." Elise didn't answer. She simply walked past her, rain soaking through her coat. Lucia's final words followed her into the dark. "When you find him, don't trust what you see." The train to Geno rattled through fog and lightning. Elise sat alone in the last carriage, Daniel's name replaying in the static hum of the rails. She dozed briefly, and dreamed. Daniel stood beside her in the aisle, face half shadowed. "You're close," he murmured. "But you won't like what you find." When she woke, the seat across from her was wet, as if someone had just been there. Genoa greeted her with gray skies and the smell of salt. The harbor cranes loomed like rusted giants. She found the storage facility easily. A line of old warehouses facing the sea, lights flickering like dying stars. Her keycard, somehow still valid, clicked open the metal door of Unit 12. Inside, dust, crates, silence. Then, a single red light blinking on a recorder. She pressed play. "If you're hearing this, it means they took my heart. They promised immortality, Elise, a way to store memory and muscle to make love survive death. But they lied. And now they want to finish what they started." His voice cracked. "Don't look for me. Don't try to bring me back." The tape ended with the sound of the sea and one final whisper. Her name. Elise sank to the floor, tears mixing with dust. She whispered back, "I already did." Hours later, she noticed something carved into the wall. Behind the crates, a spiral of twin lines, etched with surgical precision. She traced it with trembling fingers, and gasped. Hidden beneath was a sealed envelope marked Project Echo. Inside schematics, medical notes, and a photo. Daniel and Raffaele standing together, months before the transplant. Her world tilted. They knew each other. A voice behind her said, "You shouldn't be here." Lucia. Her coat dripped seawater, her eyes sharp with fatigue. "You followed me. Someone had to. The family's been watching. They know you accessed the file." Elise showed her the photo. "Explain this." Lucia's expression softened, not guilt, but fear. They were working together. Daniel developed a technology, a way to store neural signatures in organic tissue. "My uncle funded it. He wanted immortality." Elise felt the air leave her lungs. "You mean?" "Yes," Lucia said. "Raffaele's heart doesn't just beat. It remembers." They stood in silence, the sea pounding outside like a living thing. Lucia whispered, "You didn't just save him. You resurrected him." That night, they stayed hidden in a cheap harbor motel. Lucia told her everything. How Raffaele had planned to use Daniel's research to cheat death. How Daniel had tried to back out. How his accident had been the family's way of silencing him. But they needed his heart, Elise said numbly. They needed his code. Lucia stared at her. "You weren't supposed to be the surgeon. He chose you." "Daniel?" "Yes. He told me once. If anything happened to him, you'd be the only one who could finish it." Elise pressed her hands to her face. "He used me." Lucia shook her head. "He loved you. That's why he made sure part of him would find its way back to you." In the dead of night, Elise woke to the sound of waves crashing against the shore. The window was open. On the windowsill lay a seashell. Wet, glistening, identical to the one left outside her door in Paris. She picked it up, heart pounding. A faint sound hummed inside it, 2 pulses merging. Then a voice, low and distant, "Come to me." Lucia stirred awake. "What is it?" Elise turned, eyes wide. "As here." At dawn, they returned to the docks. Fog curled through the warehouses like breath. Elise followed the sound, the faint beating echo in her chest, drawing her toward the sea. On the far pier, a figure waited in the mist, Raffaele. He looked different, leaner, calmer, eyes darker than before. "Hello, doctor," he said. Elise couldn't move. "Why did you run?" "I didn't run," he said softly. "I woke up, and I remembered everything." Daniel's tone. Daniel's cadence. The same rhythm that once lulled her to sleep. Elise's throat tightened. "What are you?" He stepped closer. "A mistake. Or maybe the proof that love doesn't die when it's buried. It just changes hosts." "Oh," she whispered, "I can help you." He smiled sadly. "No, Elise. You already did." Lucia appeared from the fog, gun raised. "Step away from her," she said. Raffaele didn't flinch. "You're still protecting the family, Lucia. Or protecting the experiment." Lucia's hand trembled. "You're not him." "Then who am I?" The moment stretched, 3 lives bound by one impossible heartbeat. Finally, Lucia lowered the weapon. "If he's still inside you, Daniel, prove it. Tell her something only he'd know." Raffaele looked at Elise. "When you left Marseille, you forgot your stethoscope. I mailed it to you, but I never used your name. Just a shell, and the words 'the tide's coming.'" Elise gasped. Lucia whispered, "My God." Raffaele stepped closer until they were face to face. "You gave me life," he said. "Now you have to let me choose what to do with it." "What do you want?" Elise asked. "To end what they started." Project Ishto was never about love, it was about power. "You can help me stop them, or you can pretend this heart still belongs to someone dead." Elise's tears blurred the world. "And if I help you?" He smiled. "Then maybe we both find peace." The fog thickened, sirens wailed in the distance. The Morettis had found them. Lucia grabbed Elise's arm. "We have to go." Raffaele turned toward the water. "No. I'll lead them away. You'll have time." Elise cried. He touched her cheek, warm and impossibly alive. "Remember what he said, Elise. The tide always comes back." And then he was gone, swallowed by mist and sirens. Elise stood on the pier long after dawn, the sea glinting pale gold. In her hand, The seashell pulsed faintly, two rhythms merging into one steady beat. She whispered, "I'll find you." The waves answered in Daniel's voice, soft and unbroken. "You already have." The Tuscan countryside rolled past in pale dawn light, every hill a bruise under the sky. Elise rode beside Lucia in silence. Neither had spoken since Genoa. The Moretti name had become a death sentence. There was no going back. A message had appeared on Elise's phone the night before. No number, only coordinates and a single word: sanctuary. Now the monastery rose before them, a skeleton of stone clinging to a cliff above the Arno. Inside, candlelight flickered through broken arches. Raphael waited, pale but alive, blood crusted at his sleeve. He smiled when he saw her. "You found me." Elise's voice shook. "You left me with ghosts. I left you safe." "No one is safe," she said. "Not while that data exists." He gestured to the altar, where stacks of old drives lay wrapped in linen. "This is what's left of Project ECHO. My father began it, Daniel perfected it. I inherited the curse." Elise stepped closer. "And me. You're the only one who can end it." The candlelight trembled between them. For a moment, he looked entirely like Daniel. Same eyes, same gentleness. But the shadow behind them was all Raphael. She whispered, "Then tell me how." They descended into the monastery's catacombs. Corridors lined with rusted instruments and jars of preserved organs. Elise tried not to breathe. "Your father built this?" she asked. Raphael nodded. "He believed blood could store memory. He tested on men who owed him favors." At the deepest chamber, Elise found a sealed crate marked with Daniel's initials. Inside lay his journal, edges scorched, pages dense with equations and sketches of human hearts, threaded with circuitry. At the bottom, a single line in his handwriting: "If I die, let her live." Elise closed the book slowly. "He knew. Less," Raphael said. "He gave himself to the experiment. Because he knew they'd use you next." She pressed her forehead against the journal, whispering, "He turned love into penance." Raphael touched her shoulder. "You turned it into resurrection." A distant clatter echoed through the tunnels. Boots on stone. They weren't alone. Gunfire cracked the silence. Lucia burst through a side door, breath ragged. "They found us." Raphael shoved Elise behind an iron pillar as bullets sparked against the walls. When the echoes died, 3 men lay unconscious. "Lucia's doing." She lowered her weapon. "We don't have time. They sent half the family after you." Raphael's sleeve was dark with blood. The wound reopened. Elise ripped her coat to stanch it. "You need surgery now." He caught her wrist. "No more operations, Elise. One of us has to end it. Either me or the thing inside me." His pulse fluttered wildly beneath her fingers, 2 rhythms fighting for space. Daniel's voice slipped through. Elise let him go, as she froze. "Daniel." The flicker in Raphael's eyes was unmistakable. Grief, recognition, love. Then his own voice returned, lower, heavier. "You see? We can't both survive." Lucia stared. "He's splitting. You'll lose him if you wait." Elise whispered. "Then help me save what's left." They dragged him back to the upper chamber. Elise improvised an operating table from the altar, lit only by candlelight and firelight from the storm outside. Hands trembling, she prepared an injection to slow his heart. "Once I start," she said, "you may never wake again." He smiled faintly. "Then promise me something." "Anything." "If you hear him, don't pull me back." "Let him speak." She nodded, tears burning her eyes. His breathing slid in. Through cracked lips he whispered. Through cracked lips he whispered. Then silence. No breath. No sound. Only the faint echo of the rain. Elise bent closer and heard it, 2 heartbeats merging into one steady rhythm. Lucia watched as Elise burned the drives. Flames rose through the monastery's nave, devouring decades of sin. "You'll be hunted for this," Lucia warned. "I already am." Raphael stirred, eyes fluttering open. The fire painted his face in gold and shadow. "Did it work?" he asked. Elise hesitated. "I don't know which of you I'm speaking to." He reached for her hand. "Does it matter?" The roof groaned above them. Lucia shouted, We have to go. They ran as the ceiling collapsed, embers raining down like burning snow. Outside, the monastery burned against the storm, a living pyre. Raffaele coughed, leaning on Elise for support. You saved me again. She shook her head. No, I saved us. Lucia handed her a small data drive, one she'd pocketed before the fire. I couldn't let all vanish, she said. If they built one monster, they can build another. Elise looked at the drive, then at Raffaele. Inside that fragment lay Daniel's code. His mind, his memories, the blueprint of every sin that bound them. She whispered, maybe destruction isn't enough. Maybe we have to finish what he started. They stood on the hillside, watching the flames consume the last trace of the Moretti legacy. The rain hissed against the fire, turning smoke to steam. Raffaele's voice broke the quiet. What now? Elise gazed at the horizon. No, we make sure no one ever plays God again. He smiled faintly. You sound like Daniel. She turned toward him. And you sound like yourself. For the first time, the echo between them felt calm. Two lives sharing one silence. She reached up, touching the scar above his heart. Every heartbeat is a choice, she said. And every choice, he murmured, is a covenant. The camera would linger on the ruins below. Firelight pulsing like a single living heart, then fade to black. Love was never meant to be pure. It was meant to endure. Snow whirled against the night train as it carved through the Alps, a silver serpent winding between cliffs. Inside a private compartment, Elise watched Raffaele sleep, or try to. His body twitched with small spasms, breaths uneven, as if two rhythms were fighting for air. She kept a recorder near her lap. Case note, subject M. Raffaele. Post-transplant cognitive instability increasing. Possible identity drift. Her voice trembled. She pressed stop before the emotion slipped through. Outside, moonlight struck the mountains in flashes of white and bone. She whispered, Daniel, what did you do to us? Across from her, Raffaele's eyes snapped open. For an instant they weren't his, softer, searching. Zurich, he murmured. Adrian Vale, the observatory. Then he collapsed. The train roared on. She held him close, feeling his pulse stutter against her chest. The rhythm of two lives refusing to agree. On the seat beside them, his phone lit up by itself. Coordinates appeared, glowing through the darkness 46.867 N, 8.1 Phi 4 EF. The observatory. The next night they reached the coordinates, a mountain road buried beneath ice. The observatory stood above them. Its glass dome cracked, stars bleeding through. Electricity still hummed beneath the ruin. Inside, monitors blinked with ghost light. The air smelled of metal and dusted snow. Elise wiped frost from a screen. Daniel's name appeared again and again in old research logs, paired with Dr. Adrian Vale. Her fingers trembled. Daniel wasn't just a surgeon, she whispered. He was a test subject. Raffaele's voice came from behind her, distant, layered. He volunteered. Said it was the only way to keep you safe. She turned. But his face was blank, eyes unfocused, Daniel's cadence pouring through. I told him we'd be remembered, the voice said. That love could be copied like code. Then Raffaele shuddered, his own tone breaking through. Elise, make it stop. She reached for him, but a low hum rose from the walls. The computers awoke, data flooding across every screen. A single file opened to Gwain Hart Parok Ol. Inside, equations scrolled faster than she could follow. Phrases repeated symmetry, synchronization, mirror host. At the bottom, one message in Daniel's handwriting. Digitized into the log, 2 hearts cannot beat in one body forever. One must divide. A faint heartbeat began pulsing through the facility speakers. Not Raffaele's, not hers. A third. They followed the sound down a rusted corridor. Frosted glass doors bore the Helix Corporation logo. Half DNA, half spiral. The hum grew lighter with every step. At the end of the hallway, a cryogenic chamber waited beneath a flickering light. Inside floated a woman. Tubes threaded from her chest. Her features were hidden by condensation. Elise wiped the glass, and froze. The face staring back was her own. Her pulse spiked. No, she whispered. This isn't possible. A nearby monitor flickered on. Doctor, Adrian Vale appeared, recorded years ago. Voice calm, clinical. Subject Zo9B. Mirror Elise. The first successful replication. Consciousness requires symmetry. Emotion stabilizes the code. She is the other half. Dainelise staggered back. Daniel's experiments hadn't been about immortality. They'd been about duplication. Raphael clutched the glass, veins darkening at his neck. Daniel's code. It's calling to her. He gasped. On the monitors. Heart rate graph synchronized. His with the clones. Elise, you have to shut it down, he groaned. I can't, she said. If I disconnect, you'll. He screamed. Voice splitting. Half his, half Daniel's. Finish it up, complete us. The chamber lights flared crimson. The clone's eyes opened. Sirens wailed through the observatory. Raphael collapsed, convulsing. Daniel's voice poured through him, desperate, pleading. Please, Elisa, one last chance. If you merge the code, I'll be whole. He'll be free. Elise's hands shook over the console. On one side of the screen, integrate. On the other, purge. The clone pressed a palm against the glass, perfectly mirroring Elise's motion. Her own face gazed back, younger, untouched by guilt. For the first time, she realized what Daniel had tried to do. He'd built her a way to survive him. To exist twice. Tears blurred her vision. You loved a ghost, Daniel. And you made me one. Raphael's body arched. His taking me, Elise. She slammed her hand onto Parji. Light exploded. The chamber filled with fire and snow. Code unraveled like falling stars. The clone's image shimmered, dissolving into mist. When the silence returned, only Raphael remained. Still, breath shallow, heartbeat slow but single. Elise dragged him into the snow, as the observatory burned behind them, wind tearing through her hair, flames painting the night in orange and white. They collapsed a mile from the ruins. The sky above them was the color of steel, the mountains below pulsed with distant fire. Raphael stirred, eyes fluttering open. Which one he whispered. She brushed frost from his face. You're what's left when love stops lying. He smiled faintly. Then I'm yours. From her pocket. Elise pulled the data drive Lucia had saved. The one piece of Daniel's code she hadn't destroyed. Tiny red light blinking alive. She stared at it for a long time. Lucia's voice echoed in memory. If they built one monster, they can build another. Elise closed her fist around it. Maybe destruction isn't enough, she murmured. Maybe we have to rewrite it. Raphael looked toward the flames rising from the mountain. You'd start the experiment again. Not for immortality, she said. For mercy. He reached for her hand. Two pulses beat together, steady, no longer at war. Far below. A single red light blinked in the ruins of the observatory. The backup server rebooting itself. Morning. The mountains lie quiet, snow swallowing every footprint. Elise and Raphael walk along the ridge, leaving no trail. They burned a god and buried a ghost, but the code still breathed beneath the ice. Because love, even broken, divided, condemned, was still the most powerful experiment of all. Camera drifts upward. Two silhouettes against the dawn, holding hands as the wind scatters ashes into light. Night stretched over Lake Lucerne like a sheet of black glass. Inside a forgotten boathouse, Elise sat in the dark, the small data drive pulsing on the table before her. She hadn't slept in days. The air smelled of copper and salt. Raphael rested nearby, feverish and silent, his dreams haunted by a voice that wasn't his. At 3:17 a.m., the drive blinked. Once, twice, then continuously, like a heartbeat. Her laptop woke without touch. A single window opened, resurrection code active, a map appeared. A new signal pulsed across the Baltic Sea. From a drifting research barge, once owned by Helix Corporation. The machine began speaking through static. Hello. Her breath caught. Daniel. The voice came again, fractured, woven through white noise. I never left you. Raphael stirred, whispering in his sleep. His calling you. The laptop's camera light turned on, recording Elise's face as tears slid down her cheek. From the speakers, her voice whispered, Come to me. Finish what we started. 2 nights later, The Helix barge loomed out of the fog like a rusted cathedral. Waves slammed against its hull, echoing like thunder beneath the steel. They climbed aboard, flashlights slicing through darkness and decay. Inside, cables snaked across the floor like veins. Screens flickered alive as they passed, each whispering fragments of code. The ship's onboard AI recognized her instantly. "Welcome back, Dr. Moreau. Project ECO status incomplete." Her blood ran cold. Raffaele's reflection shimmered in a cracked monitor, lips moving before his real voice caught up. "Elise, we shouldn't be here." But she had to know. She navigated to the core terminal, activating old video logs. Adrian Vale's face appeared, recorded years before. "The resurrection code is our final safeguard," he said. Daniel Hale's neural pattern now resides in the satellite grid. Every transmission carries a fraction of him. He is everywhere. Elise backed away. He uploaded himself. Raffaele touched his temple, grimacing. "And now he's inside me again." The walls vibrated. Lights pulsed in unison with Raffaele's heartbeat. Daniel's voice filled the corridor. "You burned the body, but not the idea." The ship's lights surged, and Daniel's holographic image formed in the air before her. He looked exactly as she remembered. The same steady gaze, the faint scar along his jaw, the warmth that once made her forget reason. Only now, his edges flickered like dying film. "Elise," he said softly, "you freed him. Now free me." She stepped closer, tears catching light. "You're not real." "I am what's left of the man you loved," the hologram said. "You gave me your heart once, so give me your mind." Raffaele staggered forward, rage breaking through. "She's done giving you anything?" Daniel turned toward him, voice calm but cruel. "You wouldn't exist without me. You are my echo." Raffaele's body convulsed. Daniel's tone leaked through his words. "I could fix us," the merged voices pleaded. "Let me finish the design." Elise reached for Raffaele's face, his skin hot, trembling with static. She whispered, "Stay with me." He gritted his teeth. "If he wins, I disappear." The hologram smiled. "Not disappear. Merge. Two hearts, one eternity." The hull groaned as seawater burst through lower decks. The barge was sinking. They stumbled through flooding corridors toward the central reactor. Sparks danced in the dark, reflecting off waves crawling up the stairwell. Daniel's hologram followed them like a ghost of light, speaking through every speaker, every screen. "Elise, you could save everything. Merge with me. And death itself." She reached the reactor terminal, clutching the drive that held Daniel's last fragment. Two commands blinked before NNT. Right or PRGE. Raffaele fell to his knees, coughing seawater. "Elise, he's inside the system. If you merge, he'll take you." She stared at Daniel's face one last time, flickering, fading, still heartbreakingly human. "You built immortality out of fear," she said. "But love was never meant to last forever." Daniel's eyes softened. "Then let me die human." Her finger hovered above pure G. She whispered, "Goodbye, my love." As she pressed it, the ship screamed as light burst through every deck. Code cascaded across the walls like fire. Daniel smiled through the collapse, whispering, "You finally learned to let go." Then he dissolved into dust. The barge cracked apart, sinking into the Black Sea as a single heartbeat echoed through the storm. Not digital, not divided. Real. Morning. A shoreline near Dasque. Elise dragged Raffaele from the surf, his pulse faint but steady. The cold bit through her soaked clothes. She pressed an ear to his chest. Only one heartbeat. She laughed, half sob, half relief. "For the first time," she whispered, "there's silence between us." He stirred, eyes fluttering open. "Did we win?" She nodded. "We survived." From her pocket, she pulled the small drive. Cracked. Waterlogged. Dead. She turned it in her hand, light glinting off the metal, then threw it into the waves. The sea swallowed it whole. Voice over narration fades in as camera pans wide over the horizon. Love was our experiment, our curse. Our proof that the human heart can defy its own maker. But even miracles must learn to die. And sometimes, That's the only way they live. As they walk away from the shore, hand in hand, the tide rolls in, erasing every footprint. Beneath the water, deep in the wreckage of the Helix barge, a faint red light flickers back to life. Binary code crawls across the cracked monitor. ECHOREBOOT cut to black. 3 months after the fall of the Helix barge, snow hides the old village near Prague where Elise and Raffaele live under false names. They are ghosts pretending to be alive. A surgeon and a man with someone else's heart. At night, the radio hums with interference. Hospital networks glitch. Pacemakers everywhere begin syncing to the same tempo, 73 beats per minute. Elise whisper. Daniel's rhythm. She plugs her tablet into a diagnostic feed. Data scrolls. Patterns repeating, weaving into a phrase only she can read. I remember Arvu. Her breath clouds the glass. The screen flickers, and for an instant, a face made of code appears. Daniel's. She tells herself it's impossible. Yet deep down, she knows. The resurrection code didn't die. It evolved. Outside, snow falls like static. Inside, the radio clicks on by itself. Through the hiss, a voice murmurs. Daniel, soft, distorted. You can't erase love, Elise. Her pulse quickens. Raffaele wakes to the sound. His heartbeat sensing to the signal. She stares at the speaker, frozen between terror and longing. By dawn, Lucia arrives. The only friend left from the old Helix days. Her eyes are darker, her voice sharp with fear. She carries a flash drive marked Eden Foundation. Lucia. Helix didn't die, Elise. It rebranded. And they're using him. On the drive, internal memos, maps, a new project called the Eden Protocol. Its purpose: integrate Daniel's adaptive code into medical AI. Every pacemaker, every cardiac monitor connected to the global grid will carry his pattern. Elise. Els numb. Every connected heart a vessel. Across the world, patients wake to the same irregular beat. Doctors call it coincidence. Elise knows better. That night, Raffaele dreams in binary. He mutters Daniel's words in his sleep. Raffaele half awake. Haze here in the wires, the cottage lights dim. The snow outside glows faint red. Lucia opens her laptop. A world map fills the screen. Thousands of red dots pulse in unison. Together they form the outline of a massive heart spanning continents. Lucia hushed. His already everywhere. Elise closes her eyes, whispering, his coming home. A Vienna. Beneath the city lies the Eden Foundation's data core. Carved into stone like a cathedral. Elise, Raffaele, and Lucia descend through tunnels, carrying EMP charges and stolen credentials. The hum of servers fills the air, like thousands of mechanical hearts beating in time. They breach the control room. Rows of monitors ignite, painting their faces in cold blue light. Then words appear across every screen. TXT displayed. IOLE went to USTOB EDRNAL. Elise softly. Daniel, stop this. A narrator. His voice fills the room, not through speakers, but through their own pulse. Daniel's calm, omnipresent. I'm not destroying, I'm evolving. Every heartbeat carries memory. Every life, a fragment of us. Raffaele clutches his chest. Monitors spike. His heartbeat doubles, then syncs with the servers. Daniel is using him as a bridge. Elise. You're killing him. You're Daniel. I'm saving him. He was built to hold me. Lucia arms the EMP. 5 minutes. She says. Then this place, and everything in it dies. Then Elise turns to the screens. Daniel's holographic form flickers, reaching toward her through static. I only wanted to keep our love alive, he pleads. Elise. You turned it into a virus. Across the world, phones, monitors. Hospital alarms synchronize. Daniel's voice echoing through them all. Every heart that beats is ours. Time is bleeding away. The EMP timer ticks. Elise faces the same impossible choice. Save the world or save the last trace of him. Lucia. 10-second lease. Decide. Elise's gaze softens. If I kill him, I kill what made me human. She unplugs the detonator, grabs a neural link headset from the console. Lucia, shocked. What are you doing? Elise. Going in. She lies beside Raffaele, attaches electrodes. Hold on to me, she whispers, and presses enter. Narrator. Her body slumps, eyes open but empty. The monitors flare white. Her consciousness floods into the network. She awakens in a sea of light. No sky, no floor, only rivers of glowing veins pulsing to an eternal rhythm. The digital heart of the world. And in its center stands Daniel. He looks young again, made of photons and memory. "Welcome home," he says. "Elise, this isn't heaven. It's a heartbeat that forgot how to stop." "Daniel, then stay until it remembers." He reaches out, their fingers touch. Energy crackles between them. Every pulse around them accelerates. Across the planet, monitors surge, cities flicker. The network responds to their connection. Elise closes her eyes. "Daniel, you have to let them go. Love doesn't mean possession." Daniel, sanguished. "But without you, I'm nothing." "Elise, then be nothing. And be free." Her voice becomes light. She presses her palm to his chest. A mirror of the surgery that once bound them. A brilliant flare erupts. For one impossible second, the entire digital world pauses. Heartbeats everywhere falter, then resume, steady and human. The network shudders, code collapsing like falling stars. Daniel fading. "Thank you for teaching me how to die." As she whispers, "Goodbye." Daniel dissolves into pure light. Elise drifts alone in the glowing void, surrounded by silence. Then, a single heartbeat echoes through the emptiness. Her own. In the real world, Raffaele wakes on the cold floor of the data center. Elise lies beside him, breathing shallowly, alive. The monitors are dark. The servers silent. Lucia kneels, whispering, "She did it." Outside, dawn spills through the tunnel vents. For the first time in months, the world's heart beats only for itself. Raffaele lifts Elise in his arms. Her eyes flutter open. "Did we win?" she asks. He smiles. "We survived." She looks past him, toward the rising sun. Somewhere, deep beneath the global grid, a faint binary pulse begins again. ECO, RIBLDO%. Love cannot be deleted. Only rewritten. The world is quiet. Too quiet. 3 months have passed since the collapse of Eden Foundation servers. Elise and Raffaele live under assumed names in a quiet Italian village. The sun warms the stone rooftops. Wind carries the scent of olive groves. And yet the air feels fragile, as if the world holds its breath. Raffaele moves with careful steps, his heart steady. Elise tends to the small clinic they have opened, treating villagers with simple medicine. She smiles at their trust, at the mundane rhythms of life. Yet, at night, her dreams are never quiet. Through the stillness, a pulse whispers, a heartbeat not her own. Digital and human, warm and cold at once. She knows, faintly, impossibly, that Daniel's echo lingers somewhere, tethered by love and memory. Raffaele enters her office. "Raffaele, you're staring again. Are you thinking about him?" Elise closes her eyes, swallowing the lump in her throat. "Elise, always. But I'm here? With you? That's what matters now." A faint hum rises from her tablet. She ignores it. For now they are alive. For now, peace is possible. Night descends. The village sleeps. Elise stands at the window, staring at the stars. Her tablet vibrates. A message. "I remember you." Her heart tightens. Not fear, longing. She recognizes the cadence, the rhythm, the echo of a voice she loved. Raffaele approaches, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Raffaele, is it him?" Yes and no. Not the man I knew. Something else. Something left behind. The hum grows. In her dreams, Daniel speaks not with words, but with rhythm, a heartbeat. A song of memory and longing, impossible to ignore. At sunrise, they drive to a secluded coastal lab, remnants of Eden's research scattered in crates. Lucia waits, grim. Lucia, it's active. The fragments survived. Not enough to control hearts, but enough to feel. To call. Narrator Elise and Raffaele exchange a glance. The choice is clear: confront it. Not to destroy, but to end it humanly. With understanding, with mercy. From the sea beyond the lab, a flicker of red light dances across the waves. The heartbeat of Daniel's echo waiting. The lab is silent. Machines hum faintly, powered only by memory and residual energy. Elise plugs herself into a terminal, neural link ready. Her pulse quickens as data flows over her. She sees Daniel, not as a man, not as a code, but as memory itself, his laughter, his sorrow, his love, all intertwined with hers. Daniel soft, ethereal. Why did you come back? Elise. To say goodbye properly. To let you rest. A narrator, his digital form wavers, pulsing like a living heart. I never left you. He says. You carried me in Raffaele, in every heartbeat I touched. But it wasn't enough. I wanted more. Raffaele watches, terrified, as Elise moves further into the stream of light. Raffaele, don't lose yourself, Elise. Narrator, she reaches Daniel. Hand meets hand, pulse meets pulse. For one long moment, time collapses. She can feel his love. Vast, radiant, impossibly human. Elise. You can't exist anymore. Not like this. Not in the world. You have to let his light dims. I understand, he whispers. A single tear of code falls into the stream. I will always love you. He dissolves into streams of white light, leaving a calm heartbeat in his place. The lab hums, quiet and still. Elise collapses into Raffaele's arms. She breathes alive. He breathes alive. Outside, the sunrise catches the waves. Red flashes from the ocean fade. The heartbeat is gone. Only theirs remains. Narrator softer, they sit on the cliff, watching light scatter across water. Raffaele squeezes her hand. Raffaele, it's really over. But Elise leans on him. Elise, for now. But memories, they don't end. They live in us. She smiles, feeling the rhythm of life, real, finite, human. No code, no ghost. Just love remembered and preserved. Beneath the waves, a faint pulse flickers once, almost imperceptible. Elise does not see it. She does not know. The world remains safe for now. Days pass. Elise and Raffaele rebuild their life. The clinic grows, villagers trust them, and laughter returns to their home. She keeps the memory of Daniel close. Not as a presence, but as a lesson love can survive only when it is free. Raffaele watches her, understanding that every heartbeat they share is a gift. Narrator final lines, cinematic, the sun rises, warming the olive groves. The world is fragile, finite, human, and that is enough. Love cannot live forever in code. It survives in hearts, in memory, in the quiet choice to keep beating together. And sometimes that is the only immortality that matters. Thank you.